Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us today because we are about to unpack one of the most wild, fascinating, ancient narratives ever recorded. We're looking at a story that has literally got it all: an unprecedented imperial crisis, high-stakes political strategy, and ultimately, a masterclass in divine sovereignty. We're going to trace the actual historical realities of a man who navigated the incredibly treacherous waters of the ancient world to save an entire empire.
I mean, seriously, think about this for a second. How does a forgotten prisoner become the second most powerful man on Earth overnight? It's just a massive, unparalleled contrast. We're talking about a guy going from the absolute lowest rung of ancient society, a dark, subterranean dungeon, to literally ruling the greatest empire of the day, all in the span of a single 24-hour period. It is the ultimate pit-to-palace archetype. Today, we're going to figure out exactly how this incredible elevation unfolded and look at the deep theological shockwaves it sent rippling through history. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's our roadmap. We'll start with Pharaoh's unsolved dreams, move from pit to court, look at revealing the future, track the rise of the Vizier, and finally explore the echoes of the future.
Part 1. Pharaoh's Unsolved Dreams, an imperial crisis of knowledge.
So, to really grasp the sheer panic happening here, we have to get inside the ancient Egyptian cognitive environment. You see, Pharaoh wasn't just a king. In Egyptian ideology, he was viewed as a literal divine incarnation. He was the ultimate guarantor of Ma'at, which meant he was responsible for keeping cosmic and earthly order intact. If things went south in the empire, it was seen as a direct threat to Pharaoh's divine authority. And suddenly his peace is completely shattered by an imperial crisis of knowledge. It all starts with a dream. Pharaoh dreams he's standing by the Nile River, known in Hebrew as the Yor. Now, in Egyptian theology, the Nile wasn't just water. It was personified as the life-giving deity Hapi, the god responsible for the agricultural flooding that literally fed the empire. Out of this river emerged 7 sleek, incredibly fat cows. But then, this terrifying duality strikes. 7 ugly, gaunt cows come out and actually devour the healthy ones. And the crazy part? They look just as emaciated as before they ate.
Pharaoh wakes up in a cold sweat, falls back asleep, and boom, it happens again. The dream is doubled. This time, it's 7 plump ears of grain growing on a single stalk, only to be swallowed up by 7 thin, withered ears, completely scorched by the unforgiving east wind, known as the Kadim. Now, why twice? Well, this doubling is incredibly significant in the ancient Near East. It signals to Pharaoh that this isn't just some random nightmare you shake off in the morning. The doubling represents absolute divine certainty. The events are fixed, they're imminent, and Pharaoh wakes up with his spirit just deeply, deeply troubled.
The crucial point here is how the empire responds, or, well, actually fails to respond. Total system failure. Pharaoh summons the best of the best, all of Egypt's elite wise men and the Chartumim, these sacred scribes and lector priests. They relied heavily on these highly ritualized dream interpretation manuals, kind of like the famous Chester Beatty Papyrus. But these pagan systems are proven entirely impotent. The experts are completely baffled. Why? Because these dreams didn't originate from standard ancient omens. They came directly from the transcendent God of Israel, completely bypassing the empire's entire religious apparatus.
Section 2. From pit to court, the prisoner summoned.
Confronted by this massive, embarrassing failure of his own systems, a desperate official in Pharaoh's court, the chief cupbearer, finally has a lightbulb moment. He remembers a young Hebrew servant who had accurately interpreted his own dream 2 full years ago. Pharaoh gives the command, and things move with literal lightning speed. The text says Joseph is brought hastily out of the Habor, the dark subterranean pit. But wait, he doesn't just walk into the throne room. Before he can stand before the divine Pharaoh, he undergoes a rapid ritual preparation. He is shaved top to bottom, and his clothes are changed. This is a fascinating historical detail reflecting authentic ancient Egyptian court etiquette, because body hair was highly associated with foreign uncleanness and ritual impurity. From a literary standpoint, this sudden dramatic movement out of the dark pit into fresh garments perfectly prefigures a sort of resurrection. He's moving from death and shame straight to life and courtly vindication.
Section 3. Revealing the Future, Divine Insight and Strategy.
Okay, this is the moment of truth. Picture the tension here. A foreign, formerly imprisoned Hebrew servant is now standing face to face with the most powerful monarch in the world. Pharaoh tells Joseph, "Hey, I've heard about your great reputation for interpreting dreams." And Joseph's immediate response is just incredible. He issues this bold theological correction, crying out, "Biladai," which essentially translates to, "Not me." God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer. He completely disavows any personal magic or expertise. Right out of the gate, Joseph sets Hebraic revelation completely apart from ancient Near Eastern divination, framing what is about to happen as a pure act of divine grace and sovereignty.
Joseph then reveals a fascinating macro schedule. He tells Pharaoh, look, the dreams are fundamentally one unified message. God is showing you exactly what he is about to do. First, there will be 7 years of absolutely unprecedented agricultural abundance across all of Egypt. But that is going to be immediately followed by 7 years of a severe famine. A famine so catastrophic, so devastating, it will completely consume the memory of the former abundance. God has fixed the matter, and it's starting right now.
But Joseph doesn't just drop the prophecy and walk away. He makes this brilliant pivot from prophetic interpreter to practical statesman. He counsels Pharaoh to find a discerning, wise man to oversee a massive, centralized agricultural strategy. The plan? Appoint overseers to collect exactly 1/5, that's 20%, of all the produce during those 7 good years, storing it up in regional granaries under royal authority. It's an absolutely perfect illustration of how, in the biblical framework, divine revelation is intended to guide human stewardship in order to preserve human life.
Section 4. Rise of the Vizier, the Imperial Investiture.
Pharaoh and his servants are frankly absolutely floored by this counsel. Pharaoh looks around at his court and asks, "Are we going to find anyone else like this man, one in whom is the Spirit of God?" He recognizes the Ruach Elohim, the Spirit of God, in Joseph, seeing a divine wisdom that completely obliterates all the traditional sages of Egypt. And what follows is a rapid, breathtaking elevation. Pharaoh officially makes Joseph his vizier, second in command over all of Egypt, and he does this using highly authentic New Kingdom and Middle Kingdom administrative protocols. He takes off his signet ring, the tabiat, giving Joseph absolute legal executive authority. Talk about an upgrade. He clothes him in fine linen, the shesh, ditching those old garments for high court robes. He places a heavy gold collar, a raved, around his neck, which was a really prestigious royal award known as the Gold of Honor. And finally, he has him ride through the city in his secondary chariot.
As he rides, heralds are running out in front of him crying, "Abrech!" a massive term of honor demanding total submission from the people. Basically, bow down. To complete this total transition, Pharaoh renames Joseph Zaphanath Paneah. It's an Egyptian name meaning God speaks and lives, or sometimes translated as revealer of secrets. He also arranges for him to marry Asenath, the daughter of a high-ranking priest. Just wrap your head around this. A Hebrew slave has just become the ruler over the premier empire of the ancient world. It is a stunning, undeniable demonstration of how Yahweh exalts his chosen instruments. So during those 7 years of plenty, Joseph goes to work, gathering grain until it is completely beyond measure. The text describes it as being like the sand of the sea. Before the famine even hits, Joseph and Asenath have 2 sons, and their Hebraic names give us this really profound window into Joseph's theological framing of his own crazy life. The first is Manasseh, which means to forget, because as Joseph says, God has made me forget all my hardship. It shows just incredible deep psychological and spiritual healing. The second is Ephraim, coming from the root for fruitfulness. God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. This brilliantly illustrates Joseph fulfilling the Adamic and Abrahamic creation mandate to literally be fruitful and multiply, even while living in a foreign land.
Section 5. Echoes of the Future, a blueprint for Christ. Now, the historical realities of Joseph's rejection, his elevation, and his life-saving administration don't just stop in ancient Egypt. They send massive shockwaves into the future. Because when those 7 years of famine hit, they hit hard, and they strike not just Egypt, but all the surrounding lands. It's a global crisis. When the starving Egyptians cry out to Pharaoh for bread, what does he tell them? He says, "Go to Joseph, what he says to you do." This is why this matters. It creates an absolute global dependency. People from all over the earth are flooding into Egypt to buy grain. Joseph has been positioned as the ultimate bread giver and lifesaver to the ancient world, which perfectly sets the stage for his own estranged covenant family to travel to Egypt just to survive.
It's truly a historical blueprint. This brilliantly illustrates how New Testament writers organically connected Joseph's story as a typological foreshadowing of Jesus Christ. Think about it. In Acts 7, Stephen points out the betrayal. Joseph was rejected by his own brothers and thrown into a pit, just as Christ was rejected and humbled to the point of death. Yet Joseph is exalted to vizier, with heralds shouting Abrech, just as the book of Philippians tells us Christ was exalted by God, receiving a name above every single name so that every knee should bow. And finally, the salvation aspect. Joseph provided the temporary physical bread to a starving ancient world. Jesus directly contrasts this in John 6, presenting himself as the true, eternal bread of life, descending from heaven, offering life and salvation to a spiritually starving world on a completely cosmic scale.
Genesis 41 isn't just a fascinating historical account, it is a masterpiece of promise-plan theology. It shows us exactly how God utilizes historical circumstances, even the absolute darkest ones, to advance a redemptive plan. Egypt served as this temporary incubator to preserve the covenant family during a global catastrophe. So I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to chew on today. How does divine providence use our deepest moments of suffering, our seasons in the Habar, that dark pit of obscurity, to actually prepare us for our ultimate purpose? It's a powerful reminder that the true knowledge of history belongs exclusively to God, and He is always working through the shadows to bring about a much greater design. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and definitely keep seeking the depths of these amazing narratives. Catch you next time.